Left-handed from three. Hull comes soaring in again. Just uncanny knack. And cashes in.
Is on the upper left wing. Just got inside, circles around, pure effort.
Game 3 wasn't basketball. It was daylight robbery. The Indiana Fever were leading, they were fighting, and then a series of whistles ripped the game right from their hands. Suddenly, the Las Vegas Aces are at the foul line. A'ja Wilson is throwing elbows, and Aaliyah Boston can't even get a fair challenge recognized. Fans at Gainbridge saw it, social media saw it, and the box score proves it. The Aces didn't outplay the Fever. They were handed that win. And the most infuriating part? It overshadowed Lexie Hull's gritty, career-defining performance. Do you think the Fever can bounce back? If yes, then comment, "Let's go Fever."
A'ja Wilson sets a screen where she extends her leg out, but of course they call the foul on Lexie Hull for A'ja Wilson's illegal screen. Then A'ja Wilson and Nalissa Smith totally foul Michaela Timpson, but there is no call. Could have took a 1-point lead going into half. Now we're up by 3 and they call a foul that isn't a foul. So we don't get calls when we're getting hit, but the Aces get a call when nobody touches anybody.
Game 3 was ugly, but let's not pretend this was the first time Indiana had to fight two teams at once. From the very beginning of the series, the officiating has leaned toward Las Vegas like a crutch, and it's thrown the balance of competition completely off. Everyone saw it in Game 1. Vegas tried to come back into the game at the free throw line, while Indiana's physical play was treated in a different way. The Fever would stand tall defensively, body up, and somehow those possessions always finished with the Aces shooting free throws. That set the tone. By the time the second game came around, the pattern had grown louder, and the calls felt more and more one-sided.
So why don't you think you were able to find any flow, and when that was the case, what are you trying to do to jumpstart things, maybe on the defense?
Well, it's hard for us to find flow when there's a foul call every 10 seconds. I mean, it just really is. And when they're at the free throw line, we can't get up and down the floor. And that's a challenge. They were much more aggressive and physical defensively. We didn't counter that with our off-ball actions or with our back cuts. So they took us out of our comfort zone. I mean, offense is about rhythm, it's about timing, it's about spacing. We allowed them to do that, and they kept us from doing it.
In Game 2, the whistles piled up every quarter, and what might have been small frustrations at first snowballed into a steady drag on Indiana's rhythm, with Stephanie White having to call it out postgame. By Game 3, it wasn't just a pattern anymore. It was a wall the Fever couldn't climb. The nightmare sequence came in the third quarter when Aaliyah Boston tried to challenge a foul call on Jackie Young. Stephanie White motioned for the review. The bench was ready, but officials wouldn't even acknowledge it. Seconds later, Chelsea Gray buried a three, and just like that, the crowd went from roaring with energy to gasping in disbelief as Indy's lead vanished.
A'ja Wilson is 1 for 12 as a foul is called on Boston, and that will be number 2 on Aaliyah Boston.
You saw Indiana picking up full court pressure defensively, and if you're Aaliyah Boston, that's the one spot on the floor you do not want to get a foul call.
And Stephanie White is trying to challenge it and did not call the timeout in time. Gray in the corner, connects!
It wasn't just the scoreboard swing, it was the message. The Fever played hard enough to earn separation, and in a blink, that work was erased by whistles and another Vegas bucket. Fans inside Gainbridge exploded, waving their arms, screaming at refs who seemed to shrug it off. Clips of the whole exchange went viral online almost instantly, with breakdowns highlighting how the ignored challenge shifted the game on one possession. Those same videos showcased a string of flops, cheap pushes, and constant elbows by the Aces that barely drew a glance from the officials.
2-minute recap from last night. So A'ja Wilson pushes Howard in the back. Howard pushes her in the back. It's a foul on Howard. Look at this. Aaliyah Boston gets totally fouled by Nalissa Smith. Like, it's obvious, but no call. And then A'ja Wilson gets the call for not half as much. And then Nalissa Smith gets the call for not even getting touched. Here's a replay just to prove it to you. Yep, didn't get touched.
That's the part that makes it feel less like oversight and more like an open favor. Aja Wilson could throw her shoulder into Boston, defenders were tossed onto the court without calls, and flailing arms suddenly became defense as long as you wore a Vegas jersey. Meanwhile, every bit of contact from Indiana was treated like a crime scene. The result wasn't momentum created by talent. It was momentum handed over by referees holding whistles like weapons.
Offensive foul, practically a football check, and the Aces score. So now the Aces cut it to 2, and then Asia Wilson sets an illegal screen, and they tied things up. And then Lexie Hull gets called for a foul for doing nothing when they just had 2 illegal screens they didn't call. All right, so this is fair. Same thing happens on the other side, but they don't call a foul for Kelsey Mitchell. So Leah Boston gets called for this foul for getting her arm grabbed, but Stephanie White can't challenge. They won't let her. That's the second time this game they didn't let her have her challenge. And then Asia Wilson starts acting like a big baby.
And while that might have crushed the morale of a lesser group, one Fever player decided this game wouldn't just be about bad calls, because Lexie Hull made sure of it. How often do you see a player who probably shouldn't even be on the court nearly change the direction of an entire playoff series? That's what made Lexie Hull the real headline of Game 3. She wasn't supposed to be out there at all. After aggravating her back in the opening game of this series, she came into Friday listed as questionable. Practice was limited, her movements looked stiff even in warm-ups, and you could tell fans weren't expecting much. But instead of logging a few minutes just to give her teammates a breather, Hull turned her night into something that Fever fans will remember long after this series ends.
Boston has the mismatch on Lloyd. Help comes. Kick out. Hull will fire. And hit from 3. Last 2 positions inside from Indiana. Smith tied up by Hull, and a jump ball between Smith and Hull.
She played through visible pain and still put together a box score that looked like it belonged to a healthy star. 16 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 blocks, a steal. And she did it while shooting 6 of 10 from the field, including 3 triples that felt like lifelines every time Vegas tried to edge in front. Those threes mattered even more, because they tied her with a franchise playoff mark across 2 games, 8 total, which is not something many would have predicted from her coming off a questionable injury report. And she scored her playoff career high with 16 during Game 3 against the Aces. What was impressive wasn't just the numbers, but how she earned them. Every loose ball, every scrambled rebound, she seemed to throw her body into plays that most injured players might avoid.
On the left side of the floor, just a clear out, letting Jackie Young go to work.
Jackie Young with 17 points. Boston to the corner. Hull, catch, fire, and hit. Correct call. Evans dishes. Ray whips a pass inside. What a denial from Lexie Hull.
The Hull able to save the play.
12-point game, a little under 2.5 to go. Hull hits Indiana's first field goal of the quarter.
There were moments when the camera caught her face twisted with discomfort, yet she still boxed out frontline players and chased rebounds that should have gone to taller aces. Diving onto the hardwood, wrestling for boards, and then somehow gathering herself to knock down shots. It gave the Fever bursts of life every time the officiating tried to deflate them. Even when the Aces were being rewarded at the stripe, Hull gave Indiana a chance to fight back simply by refusing to let possessions die. That's why the crowd connected with her so strongly. Fever fans knew what they were watching, a player putting her body on the line because her team needed her.
Eddie, back to Hull, wide open 3 is good.
The floor that she wants, doesn't it?
It does. Mitchell, cut it. Here's Mitchell. Mitchell, one more. You bet.
And that's what makes the entire night feel so wrong. On the same night Lexie Hull gave Indiana her best playoff game ever, all anyone could talk about were the whistles that turned the scoreboard upside down. That kind of effort deserved the spotlight, but instead it got buried under controversy. Maybe that's why Hull feels like the perfect representation of this Fever squad. Beaten down, underestimated, but refusing to give in. And if she was the picture of grit, then what does it say about Vegas that their biggest star barely showed up at all? Imagine being the face of the league, an MVP candidate, and going nearly 3 quarters without hitting a basket. That was A'ja Wilson in Game 3. She opened the night with a three-pointer that looked like a preview of dominance, but then the shot stopped falling. By halftime, she was an astonishing 1 for 11 from the field, finishing the night at 6 for 20. That's 13 points on 20 attempts, which isn't just subpar by her standards, it's flat out bad for any starter in the WNBA. Instead of bullying inside the paint or setting the tone like she's known for, she drifted outward, settled for contested fadeaways, and looked visibly frustrated as Aaliyah Boston forced her into uncomfortable shots over and over again.
And then here we go. She gets a foul call with a 3-point game for, I don't know why they called that foul, but it's the 3rd quarter and they want them to win. So here we go. Ace is up by 3. They call another foul for A'ja Wilson that isn't a foul. All right, so then they call another foul on the Fever that isn't a foul. And then to end the game after it's out of control because the Fever had a 6-point lead, but they kept calling fouls, another foul for A'ja Wilson that's not a foul. Ball don't lie, A'ja. You missed 11 shots in a row during this game.
Despite Wilson's struggles, Vegas walked away winners. That's the part that really grates on fans. The Aces didn't need A'ja to play like herself because everything else kept breaking their way, whether by whistles or by teammates stepping up. Jackie Young carried them with 25 points, nailing momentum-shifting shots whenever the Fever tried to claw back. Chelsea Gray added a steady 15, hitting both jumpers and tough lay-ins when the offense stalled. And Nalissa Smith, we've seen her inconsistency over stretches this season, segued into making plays on both ends that stacked up when the Aces needed it. So while their supposed superstar was clanking shot after shot, everyone else pieced together enough baskets to ride the benefit of officiating back into control. What adds insult to all of this is the way media covered it. Wilson's box score tells a clear story of struggle, but plenty of outlets either padded the narrative with her all-around impact, rebounds, blocks, some assists, or shifted praise to the Aces' depth. What got lost in translation? The reason she was so ineffective in the first place. Aaliyah Boston was hounding her every possession, denying easy space, and forcing her into the types of awkward shots that make efficiency impossible. When a league MVP shoots 30% on 20 tries, that's more than just an off night. That's elite one-on-one defense that deserves recognition.
2 as well.
Here's Hull. Working behind Boston. Boston was open. Great fake, and Boston lays it in.
At the same time, Wilson still managed to affect the game physically, just not in ways that earned respect. There were elbows underneath, undercuts on box outs, and long arms thrown carelessly into Indiana players that almost never drew a whistle. And the Aces kept benefiting. Becky Hammon even complained afterward that Wilson got hit too often, pointing out her single free throw attempt in 38 minutes. But the humor in that is simple. This is the same Vegas team that lived at the foul line across all 3 games. When you're sitting on more freebies than your opponent all series long, crying about calls rings hollow.
I thought she got hit a lot tonight. To shoot 1 free throw in 38 minutes. I know they told me not to say anything, but I can't.
The truth is, Indiana bottled up A'ja Wilson. They did the job you're supposed to do against the league's best player, and they still ended up losing because whistles softened the blow. That's what makes the Aces win feel empty. Instead of their star showing why she's the best, she was saved by officiating and teammates who bailed her out. That's not a statement victory. It's a protected escape. And now all eyes turn toward Gainbridge Fieldhouse, where Indiana has one final shot to flip this poisoned narrative. Sunday at Gainbridge isn't just another playoff game, it's survival. For Indiana, Game 4 is a final chance to prove they belong against a franchise that has been gifted every break along the way. Down 2-1, beaten up by injuries, and forced to overcome more than just their opponent on the floor, the Fever enter knowing that one loss ends the season. That sharp contrast sets up a night where everything is stacked against Indiana.
Sims, hoist, short. Look at Hull coming screaming in for the rebound. Boston trying to body Wilson, and does. Sims back to Boston, going back to work and dropping it in. An aggressive and effective Aaliyah Boston.
Becky Hammon has already started setting the stage, complaining about physicality from the Fever and raising concerns that officiating might bend toward the home team this time. Think about the irony. After 3 games where calls fell almost exclusively for Vegas, now the coach of 2-time champions is sounding like she's bracing for whistles to finally even out. It tells you how comfortable the Aces have become with favorable conditions and how much pressure they feel walking into Gainbridge, knowing the crowd won't sit silently through another repeat of Game 3. Because Gainbridge will not be quiet. 17,000 Indiana fans are expected to pack the building, and they will make every possession for Las Vegas miserable. It's not just noise, it's a wall of energy. When the Fever get a stop, when Boston scores inside, when Hull hits a 3, that building becomes a storm the Aces haven't handled well this season. Even Hammon admitted Vegas hasn't enjoyed playing here. That's the biggest weapon Indiana has. Turn the arena into fuel and challenge Vegas to survive outside of officiating help.
Here's Boston, back to Hull. Sets herself up. Mitchell is free, laying it in. Been a while since Mitchell has gotten a shot attempt. Mitchell will get one here. Heads hit.
The Fever's plan is no secret. Push the tempo right away, get Boston touches down low, and force Wilson to defend without bailing her out at the stripe. Establish Kelsey Mitchell early after her rough Game 3 because her scoring stretch is the difference between trading baskets and building leads. And Hull, her performance last time out, can't just be an outlier. She's playing through injury but became a heartbeat for the team. Carrying that momentum again would swing not just the scoreboard but the spirit of the roster. Vegas has cracks, even as a champion. Wilson's confidence is thin after being locked down. Jackie Young is carrying too much of the load. Depth that looks fine at home hasn't faced a playoff environment like Gainbridge at full volume. If Indiana attacks those weak points, this series shifts dramatically. Game 4 isn't about survival only. It's about sending a message for what's coming next season when Caitlin Clark returns and the Fever's core grows sharper.
On this first half, Young attacking and denied. Timpson on the block. Hull needs some help. Dump it in Boston. Find the cutter. Timpson lays it in.
The Fever didn't lose Game 3. They had it stolen. Indiana built a lead, played strong defense, and then watched the refs turn the game into free points for Las Vegas. That's not basketball. That's interference. Game 4 is now bigger than survival. It's about exposing how hollow those Aces wins look when the whistles don't bail them out. If Hull fights through pain again, if Mitchell heats up, if Boston keeps punishing Wilson inside, Gainbridge can erupt into chaos. Add 17,000 fans to that mix, and this series shifts. Indiana's season isn't finished. It's just about to get louder. Do you think the Fever can bounce back? If yes, then comment, "Let's go Fever." Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video